So remember that video I titled I Solved XAVLEG's logo, even though I only ended up sharing like a fifth of the whole solution? Yeah, so despite having identified the majority of 262 letters contained in the band's name, I only gave you the solutions to like 50 of them. Some of you call me out on this, and I think you make a fair argument, so I'm here today to own up to my mistake and take whatever punishment the YouTube content filter has in store for me. The full name of XAVLEG is very much not safe for work, and those of you who didn't heed my admittedly insufficient warning last time might be scarred for life as a result. That being said, here is your content warning. Now's your chance to back away before I rattle off 50 words that are unpleasant in isolation and downright nauseating in succession. XAVLEG's 50-letter acronym, or initialism for those of you who are especially particular, translates to acidic vaginal liquid explosion generated by mass amounts of filthy fecal fisting and sadistic septic syphilic sodomy inside the infected maggot-infested womb of a molested nun dying under the roof of a burning church while a priest watches and ejaculates an immense perverse pleasure over his first fresh fetus. I'm gonna go eat a bar of soap and chase it with an entire bottle of mouthwash now. I'll be right back. With that out of the way, I guess I'll go ahead and get started. I should clarify before going any further that this is not, in fact, an official solution. Despite my numerous attempts to get in touch with the designer, I have only heard back from him. This is an update since last time. I've only heard back from him once, and that was a response to my initial question asking whether or not the letters are, in fact, in this logo. Which they are, I can pretty confidently say. What we're looking at here is obviously the logo stretched out significantly, and that's really the only way I can pinpoint the letters to begin with. I'll go ahead and condense it at the end just to give you an idea of how ridiculously illegible this thing is normally, but for now we're going to keep it expanded for the purposes of understanding what's going on. So let me explain how I'm going to go about approaching this so all of you can actually follow along, because this is going to get pretty convoluted pretty quickly. I'm going to go word by word using this palette up here to separate not only the letters within the words, but the words within the logo. So I will start with this color pairing right here for the first word, move on to this color pairing for the second word, and then any additional letters that would otherwise be confused because the words are not lined up in a sensible way, which there are numerous cases where that does occur. I'll be using a purple, and I'll have some things up on screen somewhere that you can use to follow along with that will correspond with these colors. Starting off with the letter A. That is followed by this, I believe is the C, and it could perhaps cut off there. The I will overlap that C. The D is right here. The second I believe, begins up here and ends down here. Well, perhaps it goes through down here. I don't know what this curve is for. It really looks like it's supposed to correspond to something like a U, but there's nothing in the first word that shape would be relevant to. It doesn't do anything on the other side of the logo either, as far as I can tell. Anyways, the second C is right here, or perhaps right here. All right, word number 2, vaginal. Beginning with a V, a little further down than you might expect. We have a pretty clearly defined A. The G begins right around here, goes down through here. I think it comes up and crosses over like this. You have the I right here that crosses over the G, and N here. Another A, which is right here, I think. Or it could be just even smaller and just have the crossbar up there. I don't know. This looks a little more realistic to me. Then the L I had identified as being the lower of these two strokes. Word 3, liquid. See, like most of these words are not that bad on their own. It's just when you read them all together, it's really something else, as many of you found out the hard way. First L, as I said, is kind of nested in here. It's totally possible that one of these L's goes down and up like this, but these two vaguely parallel lines right here are just too similar for me to overlook them. This is definitely one of the first words that I'm not super sure about. We have the I there. Q, which this is the only instance of a Q in the entire logo, so we don't have much else to reference. Should be something like that. I don't know. There's a number of ways you can draw a Q. Now we're looking for a U after that. I'm not so sure, but I think the U is actually pretty far down relative to the rest of those letters. Next comes an I, the second I in the word, and the D. The letter at the beginning of the next word is most definitely overlapping the D as far as I can tell, but I think the D is something like this. Because there's this big open space in the center here. I wouldn't expect the D to be as skinny as this, but this stroke right here is part of the E at the beginning of the fourth word, so I'm gonna leave it like this for now. Word number 4, explosion. That uppercase E at the beginning is gonna be something like this, I think. For full transparency, if you're wondering why I keep looking to my right side here, it's because I have what I've deemed to be the complete solution on my right side here, just to ensure that I'm not making shit up on the spot, you know. I have to make sure all my letters are consistent with the solution I provided last time, although I have adjusted some things, so keep an eye out for that. Moving on to the P, there we go. The other P's in the logo don't really give us anything to go by because they're all so different from one another. Fourth letter of explosion, L, is right here, I believe, followed by an O that is pretty well defined in here. The second half of this word is things get a little bit dense. The last letter right here is very clear, but the way the other letters fit into this equation are not especially clear. The S is going to be right here, and that overlaps a little too much. Well, I guess it's fine. So the I could go straight down, and then the O could overlap like that. There are other instances of that I've seen in this logo that are a lot clearer, so that's how I would justify that. And then the N would simply overlap part of that O and go up through here as well. Word number 5, generated. G is right here. We've got a very clear pattern of E's emerging that is actually incredibly helpful throughout the logo, partially because E is such a common letter. Our N is going to be right here. The second E, our fourth letter, can be found right here, and there's this huge, really obvious stroke down here that goes down, crosses over horizontally, and then comes back up again that I think gives that away. Our R is going to be right there. Then we have a fairly obvious A right next to that. T that goes higher than most of the other letters we've seen so far. In fact, you could draw the next letter all the way up here. Moving on to the third E. Some of them don't curve up as much at the end, but they all kind of have this left to right swooping motion like this. As far as I've seen, I think there might be a couple in the logo, particularly in the bottom, that don't really follow that pattern, but this is a pretty telltale sign of an E. This is probably one of the more distinctive Ds, because it's actually pointed on the top and bottom as opposed to just vaguely open form like the others. On to what, the sixth word? Buy. I have never been more confident in something in my entire life than this B. I might give myself extra points for this. There we go. That's our buy. 7, mass. Starting off with our M right here. I wish I was a little more accurate with my drawings. No, you know what? I'm doing that again. That was miserable. Come on. Okay, I'm happy with that. A appears to simply overlap the M in this fashion, I suppose. These two S's I'm not entirely sure about, so there's a couple of ways you can work them into this mess right here. Also, these S's kind of like break the conventions of the other S's in the logo. It was probably just too obvious if you did two identical forms in a row. And actually, I had drawn this a little bit lower because then the next S does a little something like this. It would help if this wasn't like connected right here. There you go. Moving on to 8. Amounts? Is it plural? Okay, the A, one of the more obvious letters in the entire logo. The M is a little funky. I quite enjoy it from a stylistic perspective. And then the O could be here. I think that makes a little more sense. I'm bringing in the purple, because that's not going to be clear at all. N, it's pretty clearly right here. T in here. And the last letter S presents itself pretty clearly right here. For the 9th word of, our O is there, and our F is right here. I think the F in of actually goes through here instead, and then the F in filthy takes this line up here. Second letter I is right there, followed by a somewhat distorted L. Oh shit, look at that. I didn't even realize that previously. The T's there are mirrored. H, you might think, is overlapping here, but we know the Y is right here because of how obvious and distinct the form is. And that leaves us with an H that sort of overlaps itself at the bottom. Next word's a fun one. Beagle. Yeah, that's our 11th word. Okay. No, you know what? I think right now in my solution that I had drawn previously, I had the line going up here. I think it might go over here, because that would give some sort of reason for that hook coming down there. And then the middle bar is right here. Looks a little weird, but it gets the point across. We have our E right here, followed by a C, which is actually a lot larger and spaced out than most of the characters in the top row. So that's the top part of it, and here is the bottom of the C. It's followed by an A that should also be pretty easily distinguished. Yeah, I think it ends here, and then the L is a little something like that. And our last word, hello, our 12th word, fisting. Yep, that's a word right there. So right here, like, there's a whole bunch of horizontal strokes that you could claim to be part of the F. This I have as the main stem of the F, then these are the 2 horizontal strokes. And then we're looking for an I. Not much you can do with that. S is going to be right here. We have, it's pretty well separated from everything else. Seems like the T's in the top row all have, they're all drawn like this. I'm just seeing that here as well, because you got the stem of the T. And all the way down here, perhaps, G is very clearly right here. It's lowercase, of course. Yeah, this is a little bit tricky here. Did I even... Oh, what is that? That's not a good solution to it. The G is here, and then the next letter, or the first letter of the 14th word, excuse me, because there's another word in there, is an S, and there's no other position it could be in other than here. So we are left with a couple of lines in here to form IN, which is not especially convenient. I'll share what I have in the solution that I came up with previously. It's not very good. I don't know why I did it like this. But we got the I going down here, and then the N going through here. If you did not watch the first video, to clarify what you're looking at right now, the dark gray in the background is the logo itself. The blue is the logo flipped across the Y-axis and then masked on top of the original logo. And that shows kind of the differences between the two sides. Anything that's still white with these 2 layers enabled is unique to each side. So this little connection right here is unique to the right half of the logo, which leads me to believe that it's supposed to do something. Not that that's an entirely reliable way to make that determination, but it's something. I guess if, like, I draw the I like this, and then the N like this, that occupies all of the unique connections in this area, so that's a good enough explanation for me, I suppose. 13. And this one is placed below here, actually. As far as I can tell, I don't know, that might not be the case, but by my estimation, we have an A right here, a lowercase n right here, and then the last letter of our 13th word is a B. 14, sadistic. See, there's all of that gray area in there. We can start by kind of framing the rest of the letters with characters that we can very clearly identify, one of which being this second S and the C at the end. But the rest of the characters are a little confusing. I said this was the A down here. I don't really think this connection here is supposed to be part of a letter. Honestly, I've done better just not having the mask on there, because it's distracting and I overthink things. So the problem is there's like no place for the I. Like, is this the I? Yeah, I guess I can leave that part of the character there. say D, I, S, but is it possible that the I just overlaps here? And then the S would do a little something like that. I think the I is here, and then the T is right here. Put the A here, put D here. That actually occupies all the space there, so I can sort of live with that. I don't even know if I can give myself half credit for that. Word 15, septic. We have this very clear S form right here. Once again, here's our E that's more or less consistent with the others, but still quite distorted. Our P is going to be right here. I made some weird decisions. Every time you look at this, you're going to see some things differently. That's just kind of inevitable. So that's our T right there, or it could be. We have an I right here, and then I have the C at the end of septic overlapping that. I've adjusted the E such that it's not overlapping the T. And with that, we have 15 words, and the first line completes. Line 2, 16, syphilic, spelled wrong as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to bother pronouncing it because I know people are going to complain either way. Oh my god, I'm sorry, I did not mean to do that. Our S is going to be probably the largest character in here because it starts all the way out on the end. That's right through a whole number of characters and then comes right back up. Y. Right now, in my solution, I have it just drawn like this, but to be consistent with the other Ys, those are both drawn kind of like this kind of a Y, so I could draw it, do that. E in here. H is going to be right here. IL. Then we have the second I, and the C that I'm consistently unsure about. There we go. 17. Sodomy. This has always been particularly tricky. I don't know where the S is. Like, all the other S's we've looked at so far have been pretty freaking obvious. This one, I have no clue what it's supposed to be like. I can only assume it's drawn something like this, or this. The O pretty much overlapping that. The D here. Another O slightly touching the edge of that D. M right through here, and the Y I've drawn differently. The Y crosses over with the first letter of the second word, and hopefully you can understand what I'm doing when I divide these two parts here. It's somewhat clear that this is intended to cut back on itself and then arc up, again to keep consistent with the other Y forms we've seen. Inside. So like I was saying, I revised what I had done previously to make this I cut over the Y in the previous word. It still comes after it as far as I'm concerned because the left side of the Y is further left than the left side of the I. So our N is going to be half the total height of this word and stuff down here, while the S is nowhere to be found. I don't like my solution to that. Right now my S is being drawn there. Guess so. It's just I'm not too sure about this horizontal connection right here. It's not as nearly as thick as most of the other parts of this letter in particular and the other letters on this line. I don't know. I was gonna try to work in this up here, but I think this stroke cuts off here. That leaves us with this as the S. We have our I right here. D more or less in this area, and then an E form that you might gloss over if you're not paying close attention right at the end, and it arcs up similarly to some of the other E's we've already seen. Very nice. That's the end of word 18. Let's see how much more of this I can get through tonight before my brain starts leaking out of my ears. Word 19. That could be pretty easily determined to be starting here with the T. This is definitely the middle of the H here because the stroke continues over into here, and then the other one is part of the E at the end of word. Word 20 is infected. Got a good old I to start things off, and the N right next to it hands itself to us on a silver platter. Right next to that is an F. Previously, my solution did not incorporate this little bit right here. So there's an F, and then there's an E. The E I decided could be right here. The F I had drawn as this, and I added this little hook downwards as well for good measure. That's our C right there, which is followed by a T hiding inside of there. An E that I dislike my solution for. And then the D at the end is pretty clear. I erased the T to see if that would help me at all, but it has not. Well, okay, this could be the part of the T. What is it, it's 21? Maggot. And like I said previously, our M is going to go ahead and overlap the D at the end of the previous word. A can probably be identified as such. We have the G's, which I believe are both uppercase. So the way I drew it in my previous solution looked a little something like this, where the second G is just over the O, and then the T ain't looking right at all. Like I said, always good to take a second, third, or eighth, or 100th look at something. Oh, I see what's going on. That's the first G. The second G is slightly different from what I had considered previously. Now I will be drawing it like this. I'm aware that doesn't really leave any space for the O, but we can work with it. This also just kind of looks like a continuation of that part of the G. Not that that is really a G anymore, but it's also possible that it's an uppercase G and then a lowercase G, but like that does account for everything that's unique on this side. I don't exactly like it. We're rolling with this. I don't like it. Half credit. 2 infested. I'm going to start off with the I down here, which looks like a continuation of the T. I-N. F might be doing some double dipping here. At least this hook from the F, I think that's kind of also a commonality that I did not pick up on previously. But don't know where the middle part of the F is, because this is going to be our E right here. So it could just be completely overlapping. Our S right in here. Got our T. E. That looks more like an F to me, but whatever. And then the D at the end is pretty clearly defined, so there's not too much distracting from it. 23. Womb. Painfully obvious. Starting off with our W, which resides right here. O, it's going to be right here. M is here, despite a kind of thin connection right here. And then the last letter is going to be right here. Letter B. Everything in the middle is going to be a lot more obvious just based on the fact that it's very clearly not symmetrical. Of, I think, is next. Yes. So instead of overlapping, I drew the O like this, I guess solely because of the unique connection right here on the second half of the logo. We'll go down right through here, and that will account for both of those connections. Or it could also go inwards and then back out, in which case the O would be best defined like this. And I guess that's what I have in my original solution. So coming up on the halfway point here, 25, and it's just a single letter, A. And that A is going to be right here. And with that, we're halfway done, at least word-wise. There are quite a few words in the first half that are less than 3 letters, so not exactly, but you know, word 26. Less. This section in here, there's a whole bunch of open space. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. Those could be the legs of the A for all I know, but the M I have deemed to be here, followed by an O that I'm going to move here from my previous solution. An L perhaps arcs back here like that. I'm just going to leave it like this for now, see if that is actually, this right here is relevant to the third row. I don't think it is, but we'll see. We have our signature E design right here. This is going to be our S right here, followed by a T and another E that doesn't want to conform to our standards. I'm just going to go ahead and skip to the D for now. So this is the D right here. E preceding that. I know that looks weird, but I think that's gonna have to cut it. Word 27, none, N-U-N. Starting off with our N here that I already identified. U is overlapping that, and I'm guessing it's intended to kind of like zigzag through it. Our second N is gonna be right down here. 28, dying. First letter of the 28th word is going to be D, which is right here. I already showed the Y improperly, perhaps. Yeah, it's going to be like this. We're looking for an I, which, how did I draw it? The only reason that curve upwards is there is because of the E on this side. I wouldn't really consider that part of the I. At any rate, the letter following that is the N, and then we have our first lowercase g at the end of the word. I'm going to kick off the 29th word with the U, which probably curves up like that. We have our N right in through here. This is our D. E, you can see the top part of right here, but the rest of it is not making itself very clear. Hold on, I need to go back and revise this. The D is going to be right here. We have our E up on the top here, and an R that goes right down through that part of the D, and then has kind of like a squashed upper portion. Hold on, we're going back to line 1, so I need to make some small revisions. The S, I did draw all the way down there. I think it instead cuts off here, or instead goes through here. I considered that previously, but that does look a little better. Well, that explains more of what's going on in there, so let's just leave it like that. Our 30th word is the, and it is a little bit different from what I showed in the original video. I drew the T like this. We have our H, which goes all the way down here, and then our E that fits right into this little space here. This at least helps to fit this word into the equation a little bit better. And with that, we are 60% of the way through this logo, more or less. So we only have 20 words left, but I think most of the words I've had trouble with are concentrated in this latter half, in the last 20 words. So we'll see what pace I can keep going here. Word 31 is going to be roof. Things get really, really tricky in here, so I'm gonna be referring to my previous solution quite a bit. The R looks something like this. Yes. That is followed by 2 O's, one of which I believe is here, and the other I think just completely overlaps that and is down here. And then the F, I guess, is right here. You could interpret it a couple of different ways. You could say that those are the 2 horizontal parts of the F. You could also draw it all the way up here, leave these 2 connections unused entirely, and then I guess this looks proportionally a little more like an F. I'm gonna give myself full credit for that one. I think I'm pretty confident in that. The rest, it's anyone's guess. 32 of the O can be found potentially right here, overlapping the top of the previous F, and then the F is gonna be right here. Word 33 is simply A, and I have drawn that right here. Now, I guess I didn't draw it there, and I instead drew it here. I don't know why I decided on that. I don't think that's it, but I don't know what I did previously. I know I had the A here at one point, but then I don't know where the R is in the next word. I am pretty confident in the 33rd word, which is burning. I don't even know what color to use for this because it's already so convoluted. B I have drawn as such. That's followed by, I guess I just stuck the U in down here. Here's our U. Our R might just completely overlap the A. I have no idea. Our first N's pretty obvious. There's no real straight lines here, so the next best thing is going to be this. And then our second N drew like this. And as I had shown previously, our G at the end of the word is a little something like that. That's so awful. I'll go ahead and show you some other things I was looking at. Here's another possibility that might be more likely. I just don't know how the other words fit in around it. This right here looks pretty convincingly to be a B. We can put the U down here. There is a little bit of overlap going on here, but they all actually have their own strokes. And then moving on to the rest of the letters that I don't really think change much from what I've already drawn. There's just a lot of space left over in here, assuming the solution is something along these lines. So that's not bad. Like, the first part of it is definitely better, but then I don't know how or where to put the A and of. I've wasted enough of my life looking at this section of the logo, so we're just gonna go with what I initially attempted to solve it as. With that, the second line is complete. Word 35 is church. This one's a little funky too, mostly because it doesn't utilize nearly as much of the positive space as you would expect. We're going to start off with the C here, though. That I'm pretty damn sure about. Could fudge an H in here quite a few different ways. I'm going to try this one. Here's our U. Most of this is based around my assumption that this form right here is intended to be the R. It looks pretty convincingly like an R. I wasn't really sure where else I would put an R, but that does leave a whole bunch of stuff in here, like, totally unaccounted for, so it's the only reason I'm hesitant about that. C is going to be right here, and the H that follows it is going to be right here. Yeah, partial credit on this one, I think. 36. While my initial solution for church was not this wide, so I had to shift things over to account for that. There's definitely a W form in here, but there's also probably a lot of them throughout the logo just in general, so that doesn't really mean much. That being said, though, H that follows it is pretty convincing because of this large area of space that's unique to this side, and it pretty clearly cuts through and forms its own line there. This is just a line coming down from the N inside on the second line, and then there's the horizontal stroke connecting the two right there. I is going to be right here. L, I don't really know where it ends, but right there. And then E, got that signature form, slightly different from what we're used to seeing. And here's the rest of that E. 37 is, I think, just again. I don't know if it's still picking that up. Jeez, that's loud. Okay, here is our A. Moving on to word 38. Priest, I think? Yeah, you know what? Now that I look at this again, our P is going to be right here, and then the R that follows it is very much similar to the R I identified in church, so I think that gives me good grounds to stand on here. Our I will be right here. Here's our E. Nested inside of that is our S, and then what did I do differently? I think this is more likely. The E instead points up like that, and then we have a much clearer and separate space for our T. And that makes sense because the first letter of word 39, which is watches, begins down here. What darnation? I drew the T too far over. It still has its own stem, so that's good. W, we got this right here. There's so much going on right here. It looks like a freaking beehive, but I think it's pretty safe to say that it takes the shape of this, roughly. I don't know about this. I had the A right over that, I guess. I might revise this. I don't like that at all. I'm pretty sure the A, I mean, this is super obvious right here, partially because of this termination of the stroke right down here. The T could go here. A bit of overlap. That's okay because the right side of the A is pretty thick already. Wow, I can't draw a curve. There we go. There's our C, H. Once again, there's kind of like a double thickness right here, so I don't feel too bad about drawing over the C. We know from experience already that this is going to be an E right here, and then our S at the end is going to be right here. Beautiful. Do I give myself full credit? Did I earn it? I'm feeling a lot better about this version than what I had in my previous solution, so 40. Yeah, no, this part's a total cluster heck. A is right here, I believe. See, like, I have the solution up on this second monitor here. I have to, like, totally recalibrate every time I look over at it because there's just so much nonsense on the screen. I guess it would help if I zoomed into where I am supposed to be looking at. Once again, gonna make some revisions here, I think. I'm looking for an N. I drew the right side of the N like all the way up like that. I guess just to lead into the next letter. A-N, and then our D is gonna be right here. Wild. And it moves up right here for the next couple of words because of the fourth line that we have right here. Word 41, ejaculate. How pleasant. What did I do with the E here? I had it totally overlapping the E above, not following our established pattern in the slightest, and instead going for this diagonal. I've drawn the J here. A, I is potentially just right on top of that. C is way bigger than it needs to be. Where's the U? I guess I cut the C off a little bit further down, and then the U is going to be right here. The L that's right next to it is pretty well defined. It's a lot longer than it needs to be, but that's an L if I've ever seen one. I believe this is also the longest word in the band's name. Fun fact, the A's right leg goes over that way, then the T crosses over it as so. Been really enjoying, I don't know what the band's name is, but it's an EP that they just released, and I really wish there was more music like that. I don't know where this frickin' E is. Hell no, I'm not drawing it in like that. Update, I might be drawing it in like that. Hold on. There ain't enough strokes in here, man. It's down like that, over, and then through the A, and just ends up here, maybe. And then the S at the end is pretty painfully obvious. Okay, 42. I, at the beginning of in, I think is very much italicized, or sheared, is probably a better description. And the N right next to it is also very obvious. 43, immense. Good word. I just wish it wasn't used in this context. The I drew here. That makes enough sense. Previously, I had the M like down here, and then this stuff up here was not used at all, but there's very clearly some semblance of an M up there, and a crossing over the I there, and back up here, and then crossing back down there. The second M would be starting up here. I drew the second and third legs of it like all the way down, which is a little silly, but it does occupy the space in a sensible way. Looks like a jellyfish. There's just a bunch of M imposters. I can't even use that word anymore. It's been ruined. Faux M's in here. Anyways, our E is right here. Here's our N. The S and E at the end are very closely entwined. So here's what I believe to be the S. And then the E fits in something like that. I don't think that's right. There's just too much stuff that hasn't been used. Maybe the S goes here. I'm just assuming that because there's this big stroke right here that's, or connection I should say, that's unique to this side. That doesn't really change how bad the E is. You could draw it all the way down here and then have it curve over, but it's pretty clear that whatever this is doing is supposed to end right there. I mean, maybe it does that. I think that looks worse than what I had previously. Whatever, I'll just leave it like this. Do I even deserve partial credit there? Yeah, most of the letters are made. I would move the end of the 41st word further over because everything in here gets needlessly cramped, and then there's a bunch of extra space at the end of immense, but this S form right here is just too obvious, and there's no other S that would fit in anywhere. Word 44, a reverse. Logically then, you would start the P right here, but then the E is like right here. These two strokes just don't do anything, or at least two of those three are not functional. So we only need one. Our E is gonna be right here. Is that right? What in the hell? What? Okay, we're gonna work, hold on, we're workshopping this. I've drawn the V down here, got another E over here. I decided to cut off the E there, then put the S there. I can pretty confidently say that this is the R. Here's that beehive thing I identified on the other side that I still don't think it actually has a purpose, because it doesn't on that side and it doesn't on this side either. And that would mean the E is here. The S, sure, could just have a really thin terminal at the end there. I guess that's a little better. Well, I guess not. I just occupied that space. This is how I drew the P previously. How does a frickin' P fit in? Okay, that's believable. What did I just do? What is that? What did I didn't even know that was a shortcut. Let's pretend that the E, sure, the E does that instead. That makes a little more sense. R, sure, and then S brushes past the E and then ends up right there. Fine, 0 points. Kicking off the 45th word. He is gonna be right here. That leaves us with this stroke down here to make the L. We have our signature E form right here. A goes up here. We have this very clear stroke unique to this side right there to connect the two lines. If you miss this S, then I can't help you. The U, apparently, sure, why not? The U I've drawn all the way to the bottom of the logo. Actually, it probably cuts off here because of this terminal. I've drawn the leg of the R down here, and then the E at the very end is not especially convincing compared to the other ones we've seen, but it's something. Oh, I did this shit? Are you kidding me? Wait a minute. Yeah. That's not as bad as I thought. Got the corner right here. This little separation right there. And then the bottom part of it just goes all the way down here. Over, another one I most definitely struggled with. I've adjusted this quite a bit. The solution I arrived at is still very goofy. It's possible that the word's intended to start down here. I don't know what my reason for not doing that was. Probably because it's a dumb idea. This right here, which I believe is a mirror of the R that I was so confident about in church on the other side, is our E, and then the R at the end of the word is right here approximately. This looks like it should be the V right here, but there's already way too much stuff overlapping. So I drew the V in here instead. I wonder, maybe the O is just supposed to be here. Let's change it up a little bit, because I'm not confident in this one anyways. Is there anything else I can do with E that would make this make sense? Oh, we're really stretching this right now. No! Well, this does something. I don't know what, but I'm missing out on that. Word 47 is his. That's gonna be somewhere in here. Now that I look at it again, I think the E is probably supposed to go through here, and that leaves us with the H crossing over here, going down here. I guess I just had running into the R from roof, and then the S right here, and that's the word. And the final stretch, 3 Fs in a row. 40. Should I just draw that on the wrong layer? I drew it on the son of a bitch. Like I said, 3 Fs in a row, starting with first word being first. F is gonna look a little something like this. Our I, yeah, I mean, that's an I. The R I put in here does not jive with the other R's seen so far, but that's not a huge deal. Probably something like this. The S is very clearly starting here, and much like some of the other S's we've looked at, it has a little bit of a flare at the end, so that's my reasoning for that. Oh, you know what? No, I drew yeah, that makes sense. The S goes up here and over, and then the T cuts right through it, all the way up to the end, and has the widest stroke of any of the letters in this entire logo right here. Whew. That's liner 3, apparently, because I can't type. Line 4, I don't know what colors to go with here, because all of the others are overlapping it. So we'll just start with purple and see what happens. Word 49, wretch. So that's our app. I had some debate with Cod's Metal logos on this one, and a couple of other areas of the logo. He did not want any part of this, I could tell, so he left the rest to me. I don't blame him. Things start getting really weird right here, because there is sort of like an indent up here. It's possibly like everything was warped upwards and then this was stuffed in at the end. This part definitely feels like an afterthought because everything is so squashed. Here's our R. We got an E next, and I think that E is incredibly wide. I've always been bad at drawing horizontally. Is that how we did it? I guess I just cut it off here, because our S is then sitting right in... Why can't I drew it in, why did I draw it in pink? S right on top of that, and our H, which might connect down here based on the unique stroke, but I think it makes more sense to be here. And the last of our 50 words, fetus. F right in the center here. E is pretty much falling over, but it's there, I guess. T right here. The U here. Is there really no better spot for that? Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's where it goes. And the S, last of 262 letters, is going to be right there. Ethos. I don't know about the U. Well, folks, if you've made it this far, I'm impressed. as some dedication to the art of metal logo deciphering, but I hope it was satisfying to those of you who were a little let down by the previous video. If I had done all of this in addition to all of the footage, like the compilation that I had at the beginning, the 7 stages of grief or whatever, that video would have been like an hour and a half, and I don't think anyone would sit through that entire thing. So it's better that this has its own like separate video. If you have any questions or alternative solutions to this, I'm probably going to post this video on r/metal memes or something, because I'm sure that segment of the metal community will really appreciate finally having a solution to this. That would probably be a good place to post any alternative suggestions for any of these words. Like I said there, I mean, there's already some words in here that I pointed out that I'm like, I don't have any idea. I'm still awaiting a second response from our metal logo designer. We got a notification, hold on. Okay, it's not for a message. Some of you commented about me being on VK, which I'd probably not pronounce VK, which is primarily for not Americans. The only reason I'm on here is to try to connect with the designer, and even this didn't work, so. If I do happen to hear back from the designer at any point, or if he perhaps responds to the Reddit post, I'll keep you all posted. But until then, this is... Oh, wait, I was gonna hold on. Let's go ahead and reduce the proportions to what it looked like originally, just so you can see how absolutely absurd it is. So now we have this on top of the original logo. Oh my god, it's at least twice as wide. There it is. No way in hell you're reading that. There are a couple holes in here that are especially suspicious. Is this supposed to be the E here? We've got this hole here. This is unexcusable. Like, there's definitely something I missed in there. Potentially something right here. There's this one right here, this one right here that are pretty clear. I poured my heart and soul into this thing, man. I spent so much time with it already. Not even counting like all the time I spent looking at this from the wrong perspective. So I think it's about time I laid it to rest. Hey folks, I'm recording this on the day before, if not the day of uploading, to acknowledge the fact that this video was supposed to come out like 4 months ago, almost at this point, and I'm not here to make excuses or give you reasons as to why that's the case. I'm simply here to apologize to all of my new and existing viewers, as well as a number of specific people who I believe you know who you are, that I owe some communications to. I've been completely like off the radar on both YouTube and Instagram for pretty much the same time period, and that is completely unacceptable by my standards, if no one else's. I will say, and again, this is not to excuse myself, that I'm not entirely sure about the direction that this channel is going to be headed in. Over the past few months, I've gotten really into DIY 3D printing kind of stuff, and I recognize there's already a lot of channels that do that, and that's totally external to all of the content that I've uploaded on this channel so far. But the purpose of this channel originally was supposed to be like an outlet for all of my various creative interests, which there are quite a few of, in addition to deciphering metal logos. So I'm not really sure how to go about integrating that without straying away pretty significantly from all of the metal content I've been doing so far. I've mentioned previously that I want to do metal logo designer interviews and some things to kind of like transition into like a broader selection of content, but I think it's going to be pretty difficult to transition from graphic design, to oversimplify it, to physical, industrial, DIY design, that kind of stuff. I do have plenty of content planned. It's just, it might be not what you've been expecting, and if you start seeing things in your feed that you're totally not interested in, I can understand if you're no longer interested in keeping up with this channel, but I will continue to do metal logo content going forward. It just won't be the driving force behind my channel. If you have any recommendations for content, I know, again, I've talked about quite a few different things, including metal logo design streams and also like video game streams. That's something I want to do because I do play a number of games on the side. And I think it would be fun to just kind of share that with my community. That wouldn't be like a main form of content. I thought it would be a good opportunity to get to know some of the people in my community and kind of build up that rapport, if nothing else. But yeah, if there's any other content that you would like to see me do, I'm totally open to suggestions, and I'm going to continue trying to think of how to integrate some of my interests together in a way that satisfies my current viewer base as well as those who I'm looking to target. 3D printing metal logos is probably low-hanging fruit, I would guess, but I think there's something there with like 3D typography, 3D lettering that I have been thinking about for a while, and I haven't really had a chance to explore. So we'll see what I can do with that. Again, I'm going to continue thinking about this kind of stuff. I would like to get some feedback for the second season of Deciphering Metal Logos as well. I'll probably put out a video in relatively short time that recaps the season and gives all of you an opportunity to provide feedback. And I also kind of wanted to do like a little awards ceremony for some of the episodes, some of the bands that have participated, so on and so forth. All that said, thank you for your patience. I hope I covered pretty much everything you were hoping that I would address in this video. To anyone who's still listening to me ramble on about what I may or may not do with this channel, I'm assuming that you're either a big fan of myself or of metal logos. So I want to thank you for your continued viewership, and I hope to see you around again soon. Thank you, and take care.